This episode is sponsored by Squarespace.
One of my only goals as an artist is to have work that I put out into the world that elicits an emotional response. So whether it be still photography or film, the emotional core needs to be authentic. In order to work on the wavelength that it needs to be at in order to connect with somebody, for me it needs to be emotional. Storytelling is at the core, because if there's an authentic emotion there, then there's a story there.
Welcome back, everybody. I am so incredibly sick right now, but I have a very cheerful beret to keep things light and bright over here on OMTC. So today we are talking about a little project I've been working on that I sort of titled Moving Stills. It was inspired by photographers like Alex Prager, who you saw at the opening of this video, as well as people like Gregory Crutzen, people who treat their photography and still imagery as scenes from a film and go to the lengths of full film production in order to get that one still.
We put in all our own prop cars, and we put in our own street signs, and we work very closely with the city to make sure that no streets are paved and that all the grass remains unmowed, because we want this feeling of just like a place that's been somewhat forgotten and slightly neglected.
So with that in mind, I kind of thought, okay, how can I make something that with a crew and subject of one could be kind of fun and playful and dramatic? The drama came a little bit later, because what I first did was just film scenes in my day-to-day life and extract stills from the film and assemble a story or a narrative from the scenes that I was capturing, or the stills that I captured and extracted. So this was really fun, but it didn't add up to anything. It didn't have a narrative arc or a drama or a sort of confrontation. It didn't have anything that makes a film good. I thought, okay, I need to create a character, and I need to create a world. I don't have the time or the resources to create a world, so my extent of doing this was getting a wig off of Amazon for $10. What I loved about, and what just ended up being a sort of a practical bonus about this approach to filming myself, is that in film, you can put on continuous autofocus and you don't have to worry about, does the camera have me? Which I have done a lot of self-portrait projects in the past, and that has been an issue where you're like putting a pillow on a chair and focusing for that distance, and then you walk into that space after a 10-second timer and you're just hoping that you've nailed the focus, which if you're not shooting at a high aperture of, 5.6, f8, f11, can really be a challenge. And what I loved was that I got to just run the camera, and every setup, every shot, I never spent more than 10 minutes between getting ready, getting in front of the camera, and hitting record to the end of filming. Never more than 10 minutes. But I could play with the scene. I could work with different emotional tones and just get those clips, and then in post find my moments and construct the story from there. I thought now we could just go through the images, talk a little bit about what attracted me to the compositions and why I shot the way I shot, how I shot, some of the technical details, and then we can get into resolve and how I color graded all this stuff. I am thinking of saving that for like a part 2 to this video because that gets a little bit more detailed.
But first we have to take a moment to thank our sponsor, Squarespace.
You know how I'm always talking about maximizing your time.
You mean like doing your sponsor segment in the shower?
Exactly. And now you can maximize your time with Blueprint AI. Completely customize your website with AI to guide you through the design and copy that makes your site shine and show up thanks to optimized SEO tools. And if you're shop curious, you can set up an online store to sell your prints or presets and offer flexible payment options to your potential customers like PayPal, Apple Pay, or even buy it now, pay later plans in some countries. And of course, the trusty old credit card. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/1month2cameras to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks, Squarespace. All right, so looking through these frames, I was in my hotel room and I was setting up, looking at different angles, and what I kind of landed on was getting a little tighter from the angle that I shot. I actually wanted to shoot directly back onto that stairwell because that stairwell was so Hitchcock. I mean, it was just so great, but I would have had to have more lighting and like some scrims and things like tools and modifiers to keep the light from reflecting off the glass. And, you know, with 10 minutes, that wasn't going to happen. So I just set it up like this. I do just love that staircase in the background, though. If I could do this again, I would draw more attention and maximize that. But I kind of like the way it ended up as a sort of balancing angle to the frame overall, just giving it this like a bit of a triangle headed towards the pretty cool mid-century modern light that was hanging above. I use this really, really cheap like sunlight. It's like this very sort of concentrated toy light that gives you all the spectrums of the rainbow, the RGB spectrums. So I went for this red vibe. Everything in this world is kind of like red or blue. So I knew I wanted a hard light, colored light, but I had no idea what this character would be doing. So I just picked up the mug that I had been drinking my coffee out of. And then I thought, maybe there's something funny here to play with if I leave lipstick stains on the glass, and maybe there's a story there. I just really like the way the shadow hit against the wall because it kind of made it graphic, and again, just balanced out the frame a bit more. This shot was not originally in my selects, but it was like what I ended up finding was a bridge shot, and I think this is something you really experience when you're sequencing photos, particularly for like a book or anything like that. There are like, your IG bangers, which are like your standalone photos, and that's all fine and well, but you need these like in-between shots to kind of bridge a narrative and get you to the next story or the point in the story, and this felt like that to me. This is kind of breaking that fourth wall. She's kind of developing a connection to the viewer, like she's going to do something, right? So now she's in action. She's doing something, we don't know exactly what, but she's in this room looking quite seductive. I have the story in my head, but I like to leave it also open for interpretation. So I won't share what I think is happening here. Now something's going on. Again, I'll leave that open to interpretation. If I were to change something here, it would be the fact that in the corner here, you can see the breakfast menu got left there. Someone was not paying attention to the art direction on set. That would be me. There really isn't much that I would change this. I did keep having to go back and forth to see if I was catching myself in the frame of the leaves rather than having my head interfere with the leaves. That was a little bit tricky. And then we're in the rain. What does rain symbolize? Ablution, cleansing. Oh, this was so much fun to film. It was so cold. This is again where continuous autofocus was a hero because I could move my action from the back of the frame to the front of frame, and I still got that focus on me. And that was just not something I would have been able to do if I wasn't in video. And those are the frames. So that was just a look at my fun, ridiculous, like high school level art project. I just, like I said, took so little time with each of these frames, but I really did have a lot of fun. It's also just a good exercise, I think, for thinking about how to sequence work if you're trying to tell a bit of a visual story. We will get into the color grading portion of this because color is as much a character, I feel like, in this type of a project as anything that's in front of the camera. So I feel like that warrants a bit more of a deep dive, and it will be using Dehancer in Resolve. So that's the software or the plugin that I use to create these looks, because I was going for a very filmic, very punchy kind of look and feel. So that will be the next review. And until then, I'll see you later. Bye.